He didn't just lift a World Cup, he changed an entire nation's destiny, with a bat in one hand and rebellion in his heart. When Arjuna Ranatunga walked out to bat, you could feel it. Something was different. He wasn't the fittest, fastest or flashiest player on the field, but behind that calm face and big frame was a mind sharper than most, and a spirit that refused to bend. He was a fighter, a rebel, and eventually a leader who changed the game not just for Sri Lanka, but for the entire cricketing world. Born on December 1, 1963, in Colombo, Sri Lanka, Arjuna grew up in a well-known political family. His father, Reggie Ranatunga, was a strong figure in Sri Lankan politics, which gave Arjuna both access to power and pressure. The Ranatunga household was one where politics and power were discussed over dinner, where young Arjuna learned early that influence came with responsibility. Unlike many boys who grow up dreaming of playing for their country, Arjuna was told to become a lawyer or a politician. His family had mapped out a traditional path of success for him, but he only had one dream: cricket. From his early days at Royal College, it was clear that young Arjuna had something special. While other kids played cricket for fun, he studied the game like a scholar. He would spend hours analyzing bowling patterns and batting techniques, often staying back after school to practice alone in the nets. His coaches noticed that he didn't just play cricket, he understood it. By the time he was a teenager, it was clear he wasn't just another cricketer. His timing, footwork and bold attitude stood out. He captained the Ananda College team and was already known in cricketing circles for his sharp cricket brain and fearless approach to big matches. The young Arjuna displayed leadership qualities that went beyond his years. He would study opposing teams meticulously, creating detailed notes about their strengths and weaknesses. His teammates remember him as someone who could read the game better than players twice his age. He had an uncanny ability to predict what opposition batsmen would do, where they would try to score, and how to set fields accordingly. At just 18, he made his international debut in the 1982 World Cup, playing against England at Old Trafford. Walking out to face the English bowling attack, he carried the hopes of a nation that had only recently gained Test status. He was the first Sri Lankan to score a half-century on debut, a feat that announced his arrival on the international stage. His innings of 54 was more than just runs. It was a statement that Sri Lankan cricket had produced someone special. It was the start of something nobody saw coming. In the 1980s, Sri Lankan cricket was not taken seriously by the international community. They were seen as the underdogs, the team everyone expected to beat comfortably. The cricket infrastructure was minimal, with limited financial resources, inadequate training facilities, and coaching staff who lacked international experience. Players often had to fund their own equipment and training. International tours were rare, and when they did happen, Sri Lankan players were often treated as second-class citizens by host nations. But Arjuna wasn't here to play background music. He was here to change the script. Slowly, match by match, he started building something stronger, something deeper than just cricket. He wanted to build belief. He began mentoring younger players, sharing his tactical knowledge, and instilling in them the confidence that they belonged on the international stage. During practice sessions, he would conduct informal strategy meetings, teaching his teammates to think beyond just their individual performances. But his journey was not smooth. He often clashed with cricket authorities who were comfortable with the status quo. He wasn't afraid to speak out when he saw corruption or poor decision-making, which made him enemies early on. Board meetings would often become heated exchanges when Arjuna questioned selection policies or demanded better treatment for players. In fact, many selectors didn't like him. They said he was too outspoken, too lazy, too overweight to be a top cricketer. But Arjuna had one thing most others lacked: courage. He knew he had to lead by example, and he started doing just that. During this period, Arjuna's batting average told only part of the story. While critics focused on his statistics, those who played alongside him knew his true value. He was the anchor around which the team was built, the player who could be relied upon in pressure situations. His technique was unorthodox but effective, and his ability to pace an innings was unmatched among his contemporaries. By the early 90s, Arjuna was made captain of the Sri Lankan cricket team. It was a turning point, both for him and Sri Lankan cricket. The appointment came at a time when the team was struggling with confidence and consistency. But even then, nobody thought much of his team. Most international teams saw Sri Lanka as easy points in tournaments and series. The players were treated poorly during foreign tours, often bullied by opposition players and crowds. They weren't given good hotel rooms. Their matches were scheduled in the afternoon heat while other teams played under lights. The respect wasn't there. But Arjuna turned all that disrespect into fuel. He took every slight personally, and made sure his players did too. He transformed the team culture, demanding discipline and fearlessness from every member of the squad. Team meetings became strategy sessions where every player was encouraged to contribute ideas. He stood up to bullies on and off the field, creating an environment where his players felt protected and empowered. And slowly, Sri Lanka started winning, not just by luck, but by planning, strategy, and bold cricket. The transformation wasn't immediate. There were still defeats and disappointments, but something fundamental had changed in how the team approached each match. Players began to believe that they could compete with anyone anywhere. Arjuna's captaincy style was hands-on and inclusive. He would spend hours discussing field placements with his bowlers and batting strategies with his teammates. Arjuna's tactical genius became evident in how he restructured Sri Lankan cricket's approach to the game. While other teams played conventional cricket, sticking to time-tested methods, Arjuna had a different vision. He studied the changing nature of one-day cricket, and realized that the traditional approach of slow starts and late acceleration was becoming outdated. He built his team around explosive openers like Sanath Jayasuriya and Romesh Kaluwitharana, turning perceived weaknesses into strength. Jayasuriya, originally a bowler, was transformed into a devastating opening batsman under Arjuna's guide. Kaluwitharana, a wicket-keeper, was promoted to open the batting, a move that shocked cricket traditionalists, but proved brilliantly effective. The transformation wasn't just tactical, it was cultural. Arjuna changed how Sri Lankan players saw themselves. No longer were they the underdogs, hoping to compete. They were warriors ready to conquer. He instilled a mentality that Sri Lanka didn't just belong at the top table of cricket, they were going to lead it. Then came the year everything changed. Going into the 1996 World Cup, Sri Lanka was still not seen as a serious threat by cricket pundits and opposing teams. They were ranked low in the ODI standings, and had never made it past the group stages in previous World Cup tournaments. Bookmakers had them as outsiders with long odds. Cricket commentators barely mentioned them when discussing potential winners. But Arjuna had a plan. He had watched other teams closely, studying their patterns, their strength, and most importantly, their predictable weaknesses. And most importantly, he believed in his team when no one else did. The preparation for the 1996 World Cup was meticulous. Arjuna worked with his coaching staff to develop specific strategies for each opposition team. He identified that most teams were vulnerable in the first 15 overs when only 2 fielders were allowed outside the circle. This became the foundation of Sri Lanka's revolutionary approach. He built his team's strategy around explosive openers like Sanath Jayasuriya and Romesh Kaluwitharana, who attacked from the first ball. It was a brand new approach that defied conventional wisdom. While other teams played safe early on, building platforms for late acceleration, Sri Lanka came out swinging from ball 1. The strategy was risky, it could lead to early collapses, but Arjuna had calculated that the rewards outweighed the risks. The impact was immediate and shocking. Match by match they defeated the giants. England, India, Australia. Teams that had dominated world cricket for decades suddenly found themselves outplayed by opponents they had underestimated. Suddenly, the team no one believed in was now feared. Cricket tactics books were being rewritten in real time as other teams scrambled to understand and counter Sri Lanka's approach. The final was against Australia, at the Gaddafi Stadium in Lahore. A team known for its aggression, sledging and psychological warfare. The Australians had dominated world cricket for years and were heavily favoured to win. Their team was packed with superstars: Mark Taylor, Steve Waugh, Mark Waugh, Shane Warne, Glenn McGrath, players who had intimidated opponents across the globe. Before the match even started, the pressure was enormous. Australian players led by Mark Taylor and Steve Waugh tried to get under Sri Lanka's skin with verbal intimidation and mind game. They made comments about Sri Lanka not belonging in a World Cup final, questioned their ability to handle pressure, and used their media connections to plant stories about Sri Lankan players being nervous. But Arjuna stayed calm. In the team meeting before the final, he reminded his players of every slight they had endured, every moment of disrespect, every time they had been written off. He told them that this was their chance to change history forever, not just for themselves but for their entire nation. He spoke about the millions of Sri Lankans who would be watching, about the children who would be inspired by their performance, about the respect they could earn for their country. When Australia posted a challenging total of 241, many cricket experts expected Sri Lanka to crumble under the pressure of chasing in a World Cup final. The Australian bowling attack was formidable, and the pressure of the occasion had claimed many talented teams before. But Arjuna walked out to bat with complete confidence, as if the outcome was already decided in his mind. His innings of 47 not out was a masterclass in pressure batting, not flashy or spectacular, but utterly effective. Every shot was calculated, every run was pressure. His calm leadership and clever bowling changes, including the inspired use of part-time bowlers like Sanath Jayasuriya and Hashan Tilakaratne, helped Sri Lanka lift their first ever World Cup. When Arjuna Ranatunga raised that trophy at the Gaddafi Stadium in Lahore, the entire nation cried with joy. Streets in Colombo, Kandy, Galle, and every village across the island erupted in celebration. For the first time, Sri Lanka was no longer just a dot on the map. It was a cricketing powerhouse. Streets filled with celebrations that lasted for days. Children danced on rooftops, strangers hugged each other, and people who had never met before shared tears of joy. Fireworks lit up the sky, and the national anthem was sung in every corner of the island. Arjuna had done what no one thought possible. He made an island proud, but the journey didn't stop there. After the World Cup win, Arjuna could have relaxed and enjoyed hero status. He could have taken the easy path, accepting lucrative endorsement deals and ceremonial positions, but he chose to keep fighting for fairness, for respect, and for the soul of Sri Lankan cricket. The most iconic moment of his captaincy came not from a victory, but from a moment of defiant protest. In 1999, during a match against England at the Adelaide Oval, Sri Lankan spinner Mattia Maralatharan was called for chucking by umpire Ross Emerson. The call was controversial and seemed racially motivated, humiliating Marali in front of thousands of spectators and a global television audience. But Arjuna did something no captain had done before. He stopped the game. He marched to the middle of the pitch and refused to continue until the umpire withdrew his unfair call. For several tense minutes, the match was suspended as Arjuna argued with officials, demanding justice for his player. Cameras captured him pointing his finger at umpires, his face red with anger, his body language screaming defiance. The commentary team was shocked. The crowd didn't know what was happening. Match officials were in panic mode, unsure how to handle this unprecedented situation. But Arjuna didn't care about protocols or diplomatic niceties. He was willing to lose a match, risk sanctions, and face international criticism to protect his teammates' dignity. That moment became cricketing folklore, showing the world that Arjuna Ranatunga was not just a captain. He was a guardian who fought for his players like a lion protecting its pride. But being bold has a price. Arjuna's confrontational style and unwillingness to compromise made him enemies in powerful circles. He started clashing more frequently with cricket boards, sports ministers and influential businessmen who had vested interests in cricket administration. He spoke openly about corruption in team selection, criticized poor administrative decisions, and called out unfair treatment of players. His press conferences became must-watch events where he would speak truths that others dared not voice. This made him extremely unpopular among those who preferred the old system of silent compliance. Board meetings became battlegrounds where Arjuna would challenge decisions and demand explanations for questionable policies. His public statements often embarrassed officials who preferred to conduct business behind closed doors, away from media scrutiny. Slowly, a systematic campaign began to push him out. Stories appeared in newspapers questioning his fitness, his attitude, and his leadership style. Former players, many of whom owed their careers to Arjuna's captaincy and guidance, began criticizing him publicly under pressure from cricket administrators. The cricket establishment, with support from political figures who had financial interests in the sport, started building a case for his removal. In 2000, after years of leading Sri Lanka to unprecedented success and transforming them into a force in world cricket, he was unceremoniously dropped from the team. Just like that, the man who brought Sri Lanka its greatest glory was shown the door. The official reason given was poor form, but everyone knew the real reason was his refusal to stay quiet about systematic problems plaguing Sri Lankan cricket. Many thought he would fade away into quiet retirement, perhaps accepting a ceremonial role or focusing on business interests. But Arjuna was not done fighting. In the early 2000s, he entered politics, following in his father's footsteps. He was elected to parliament and became the Minister of Sport. His goal was simple but ambitious: clean up Sri Lankan cricket from the inside and create a system that would nurture talent fairly. But politics proved to be dirtier than cricket. He tried to bring meaningful changes: better pay for players, more transparency in selection processes, and significant investment in school-level cricket development. But every step was a battle against entrenched interest. In 2011, after a poor World Cup performance and rising corruption scandals, Arjuna spoke out again with characteristic bluntness. He accused top officials of misusing funds meant for cricket development and ruining young talent through nepotistic selection policy. His words made headlines across the country. Some people supported his courage to speak truth to power. Others called him bitter and accused him of sour grapes. But deep down everyone knew he was right. Even after leaving politics, Arjuna continued to be a fearless voice for fairness in cricket. He criticized the IPL for draining talent from domestic competitions, and warned against too much power being concentrated in the hands of India, Australia, and England within the ICC structure. He consistently stood up for smaller cricketing nations, arguing that they deserved equal representation and opportunities. In 2018, he was named in a match-fixing investigation related to the 2011 World Cup semi-final against New Zealand. The news shocked cricket fans worldwide and tarnished the reputation of a man who had been considered above such allegations. But Arjuna vehemently denied all accusations, maintaining his innocence throughout the lengthy investigation process. After a thorough inquiry, no solid evidence was found to support the charges, but the stain of suspicion remained, adding yet another controversial chapter to his already dramatic life story. Through it all, Arjuna never lost his fundamental love for the game that had defined his life. He still watches matches with the same intensity he once brought to captaincy. He still mentors young players, sharing his tactical knowledge and life experiences, and he still walks with the unmistakable pride of a man who gave his everything for his team, his country, and his people. Looking back, Arjuna Ranatunga's legacy transcends the 1996 World Cup trophy that sits in his living room. He taught the world that leadership is not about personal statistics or individual achievements. It's about courage, belief, and standing up when others choose to stay silent. He demonstrated that true champions are made not just by talent, but by character, determination, and an unwavering commitment to doing what's right. He was not the most gifted cricketer of his generation. Others scored more runs, hit bigger sixes, and played more elegant shots. Players like Brian Lara, Sachin Tendulkar, and Steve Waugh had superior individual records, but he had the strongest heart and the clearest moral compass. And sometimes, in a world full of talented players, that's exactly what cricket needs most. Today, in 2025, as Sri Lankan cricket faces new challenges, with ups and downs in performance and ongoing administrative issues, many people wish for another Arjuna, a leader who can fight for the players, for the fans, and for the country with the same fearless dedication. Someone who can say no when the world expects a yes. Someone who values the game's spirit over personal gain or political convenience. Because Arjuna was never afraid to go against the flow. When everyone else was playing it safe, he took calculated risks. When others stayed silent in the face of injustice, he spoke up regardless of consequences. When the system tried to break him down, he fought back even harder. That's what made him dangerous to corrupt officials. That's what made him beloved by ordinary cricket fans. That's what made him truly great. He came from a small island nation that many people couldn't locate on a world map. He stood up to cricketing giants who had dominated the sport for decades. He faced hatred, intense pressure, dirty politics, corruption allegations, and personal pain that would have broken lesser men. But he never backed down, never compromised his core values, and never stopped to believing that cricket could be better than the politics and corruption that sometimes surrounded it. And that's why Arjuna Ranatunga will always be remembered, not just as a World Cup winning captain, not just as a successful politician, but as a legend who proved that sometimes one person with enough courage and conviction can change everything. In a sport often dominated by statistics and records, Arjuna's greatest achievement cannot be measured in numbers. He changed how cricket is played, how players are treated, and how smaller nations are respected in international sport. He showed that leadership is not about being the most talented person in the room, it's about having the courage to do what's right, even when it's difficult, unpopular, or personally costly. He didn't follow rules, he rewrote them. Subscribe now if you believe cricket needs more fighters like Arjuna.